lots more with my food buying dollars at Safeway. They're the fairest ones of all.
The company's here, and so is Safeway.
We're your loyal friends at Safeway.
Imagine a humble grocery store in 1915 Idaho. Shelves stacked with basics sold at rock-bottom prices, and a family dream as big as the prairie sky.
Special holiday bakery goodies or delicious party trays from our deli. Safeway's service and prices will put the happy in your holiday.
Fast forward through daring merges, dazzling murals, coast-to-coast expansions, and the occasional shakeup that sent ripples across North America. From that tiny Skaggs shop to today's familiar red and white signs, Safeway's story is a wild ride of bold bets, friendly faces, and bargain-hungry shoppers. Let's dive into a century of grocery store drama.
Several Safeway grocery stores across Colorado are on strike, including one here in Grand Junction.
Workers demanding better wages and more solid benefits.
Where low margins sparked a retail revolution, and every aisle tells a story of grit, growth, and reinvention. In 1915, in a tiny town called American Falls, Idaho, Samuel M. Skaggs opened a little grocery store that would one day grow into something huge. As folks called him, Sam believed in doing things differently. Instead of loading his shelves with fancy, high-priced goods, he stocked the basics: flour, sugar, coffee, canned vegetables, and sold them as close to cost as he could.
Safeway has a super special on fresh Washington-grown fancy Rome apples. The 7-pound bag is just 99 cents. Very special at just 55 cents a pound.
His idea was simple: move more products by keeping prices low, make up for smaller profits per item with bigger overall sales, and let customers feel they were getting a real deal every time they stepped through his door. That fresh way of thinking caught on fast. Sam's eldest son, Marion Barton Skaggs, known as MB, saw the buzz in that little Idaho store and figured there was something to it. By the early 1920s, he'd opened several more shops up and down the West Coast, each priced to move. MB learned a little more about buying in bulk, squeezing out extra savings, and keeping overhead down with each new store. Word spread. Skaggs' stores were where you went if you wanted good groceries without emptying your wallet. By 1926, MB had stitched the patchwork of 428 stores across 10 western states under the banner Skaggs United Stores. That same year, a big move was on the table. You might have heard of an investment firm, Merrill Lynch, which invested money to help Skaggs buy another grocery chain called Safeway.
How can I feed my family good food on a budget?
It's easy with Safeway Scotch Pie. A whole new brand of thrifty products, and a good quality is backed by Safeway, like it says on the label.
Safeway, founded by Sam Seelig just a few years earlier, boasted 322 stores on the West Coast. The Skaggs name had the systems and drive, and Safeway had the brand recognition. So they merged, kept the Safeway name, it sounded friendlier, more familiar, and officially became Safeway Inc. It wasn't long before the new Safeway was everywhere. By 1931, they'd sprouted up 3,127 stores across the United States and into Canada, leaping far beyond those first Idaho hills. Most shops were cozy, around 1,000 square feet, and stocked about 700 items.
The prices are good, and the quality's good. If low prices and quality are important to you, shop Safeway.
Imagine it. A tidy, efficient store where you could pop in for your weekly loaf of bread or your morning coffee beans, pay a low price, and head home without fuss. Those early years were all about growth and experimentation. MB and his team watched customer habits like hawks: which shelves emptied first, how folks liked their produce displayed, what kinds of meat cuts moved fastest. They kept notebooks full of ideas. Some stuck, some didn't. But they never stopped tweaking. Unlike many grocers of the day who piled on extra services or expensive fixtures, Safeway's focus stayed laser-sharp on keeping prices as lean as possible. The motto was almost no frills, just bargains.
Bringing a renewed spirit to our service commitment here at Safeway. A spirit that will make you feel like a guest in our stores.
Then came a subtle shift. While store numbers peaked in 1931, The leadership realized that slightly bigger stores could offer more variety: fresh bakeries, deli counters, wider aisles. So, as the Great Depression rolled on, Safeway's stores began to grow in size even as the total count dipped a bit. They experimented with the giant supermarket idea long before it became the norm, laying the groundwork for the sprawling one-stop shops we know today. But something unexpected unfolded just as the stores grew sleeker and more spacious. Stepping into a Safeway store in the late 1950s felt like walking into a colorful World Market pavilion. That's thanks to artist John Garth, who painted sweeping murals on the soaring, barrel-vaulted ceilings. Giant scenes of grains, fruits, spices, and seafood traveling in ships, trains, and planes from far-off lands. It was a daily reminder that your morning coffee might have come from Brazil, your oranges from Florida, and your spices from India. Garth didn't stop at one store. He left his mark on 3 others did too, and soon hundreds of Safeway stores opened with those signature barrel-vaulted roofs, each sporting a globe-spanning mural to freshen up grocery shopping. By 1961, Safeway was fine-tuning its footprint. The bustling, crowded streets of New York City, once part of its territory, were sold off to another grocer named Finast. Safeway stepped back from the Big Apple, figuring it was better to focus on places where they already had loyal shoppers and strong supply lines. 2 years later, in 1963, Safeway boldly returned to Paradise, Hawaii. They'd first tried island life back in 1934 but pulled out when logistics and costs piled up. With better shipping methods and a growing brand, they saw a fresh opportunity.
Here we are back at Safeway. We're doing a little update, a check-up, see what they got in that wine and spirits.
Shoppers on Oahu and Maui could once again grab Safeway's famous no-frills bargains, and management hoped that island residents would welcome the blend of low-price staples with their local favorites. Meanwhile, a curious lease popped up in Culver City over in sunny California. Animator and filmmaker Don Bluth, that same Don Bluth who'd later wow moviegoers with animated classics, turned a Safeway store into a small theater from 1963 to 1967. Imagine stopping by for milk and eggs, only to be in line for a cartoon screening. It was a quirky footnote in Safeway's story, but it also showed how these buildings could be more than just food markets. They were community hubs, flexible and open to creative ideas. Toward the end of the decade, Safeway eyed 2 big new territories: Houston, Texas, and Toronto, Canada. Rather than buying existing stores, they built and opened brand new locations from the ground up. With its sprawling suburbs and booming oil economy, Houston offered plenty of families eager for a one-stop grocery shop.
Now's your chance to get free groceries at Safeway's Buy One, Get One Free sale. Buy one of your General Mills favorites and get another absolutely free.
Toronto, Canada's largest city, promised a multicultural customer base. But breaking into a new city is never easy. In both Houston and Toronto, Safeway ran into stiff competition. Local chains already had deep roots, loyal shoppers, and well-tuned supply lines.
Henry, did you know you can go into any service merchandise nationwide, use their gift registry, and find out exactly what I want as a gift? Huh?
Despite modern store layouts, low prices, and those eye-catching murals, Safeway couldn't edge out the home team advantage. Houston shoppers stuck with their favorite hometown grocers. Torontonians continued to support Canadian chains they'd known for years. By the early 1970s, Safeway quietly retreated from those markets. It was a reminder that even a powerhouse grocery chain can stumble when it underestimates how much local ties and brand loyalty matter. Instead of knocking on closed doors, Safeway refocused on strengthening its presence elsewhere, doubling down on regions where its low-margin, high-volume approach had already won hearts and grocery carts. So, those decades between the 1950s and 1960s were a mix of dazzling art, bold experiments, and a few bruising knocks. Safeway's barrel-vaulted murals set a new standard for grocery store design, creating an inviting vibe that made shopping feel like a mini-adventure.
To our service commitment here at Safeway, a spirit that will make you feel like a guest in our stores. And that's our personal guarantee.
Meanwhile, the company's strategic plays, selling New York stores, re-entering Hawaii, dabbling in theater space, and testing new markets, showed a willingness to innovate and adapt. Some bets paid off, others didn't. But through it all, Safeway's core promise stayed the same: bring customers good food at fair prices and keep things moving fast. After all, from Idaho to California, and even for a moment in Hawaii and beyond, that simple idea has been the secret sauce behind every store's success.
Add that to thousands of Super Savers, our own money-saving brands, and double coupons, and you'll always get the very best savings at Safeway, no matter what their specials are.
But beneath the surface, storm clouds were gathering. In the mid-1980s, Safeway was in the crosshairs of a hostile takeover. Corporate raiders Herbert and Robert Haft swooped in, dangling tempting offers to shareholders. Safeway might fall under their control until private equity firm Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, KKR, rode in as the White Knight. In 1986, KKR helped Safeway go private, shielding it from the Haft brothers but saddling the grocery chain with a mountain of debt. That debt was more than just a number on a balance sheet. It was a giant weight on Safeway's shoulders.
Henry was ahead of everybody when it came to raising money. He sort of invented the business.
Suddenly, the company needed cash, fast. The quickest way to raise money was to sell off bits and pieces. Entire regions, store chains, and warehouses went up for grabs. Between 1987 and 1989, nearly half of Safeway's roughly 2,200 U.S. stores were sold or closed. It was like chopping branches off a tree to stay alive, painful but necessary. The buyers of those domestic divisions soon discovered they'd bitten off more than they could chew. Most stumbled under the financial strain. A handful went bankrupt. Competitors scooped up others.
He's making the big decisions, calling the shots. He's been the one instrumental in taking risks over the years and pushing them into new areas.
Two exceptions, Midwestern chains Hy-Vee and Fairway, made their newly acquired locations work, blending the Safeway stores into their regional flavors. But for almost everyone else, the acquisition became a millstone rather than a growth engine. Internationally, though, Safeway's offspring fared better. In the United Kingdom, Safeway plc was sold to supermarket chain Argyle Foods in the late 1980s. Argyle itself later merged into what we know today as Morrison's in 2004, and the old Safeway stores simply disappeared into Morrison's blue and yellow brand.
And because Price Mission Plus saves you pounds, not points, all you collect is the change. So, you can enjoy the big day and still make big savings.
Down under, Australia's Safeway got snapped up by Woolworths Limited in 1985. Those stores took on Woolworths branding but kept their solid reputation for fresh produce and friendly service. Closer to home, Safeway made a strategic swap in Southern California. In 1988, it traded its Los Angeles and San Diego stores to the Vons companies for a 30% stake in Vons. This clever deal let Safeway exit a crowded market without turning its back entirely. Instead of wrestling for market share, they watched from the sidelines while collecting dividends. It was a quieter way to stay invested in the region's grocery business. Up north in the Central Valley, Fresno, Modesto, Stockton, and Sacramento, Safeway pulled back even more. By 1996, only a few stores remained, and those were sold off to Save Mart supermarkets. Save Mart, a locally owned chain, absorbed the last of Safeway's Fresno presence and gave shoppers a familiar hometown alternative.
Look at this. Budget values. Club sizes and prices, but no membership fee. One more thing I love about Shop and Save.
Meanwhile, on the Eastern Shore, Delmarva and the broader East Coast division, Safeway quietly closed or sold dozens of stores. From 1987 to 1989, entire neighborhoods lost their nearby Safeway. Shoppers had to find new stops for bread and milk, and some simply migrated to rival chains that filled the void. When the dust settled, Safeway's national map looked very different. The chain that once stretched from coast to coast was now focused on the American West, Northern California, and the Washington, D.C. area. What remained were roughly 1,100 stores, about half of what the company had boasted just a few years earlier. After weathering the storms of the 1980s, Safeway tiptoed back into the public markets in the early 1990s, and with fresh energy too. In 1992, the board tapped Steve Bird, advising the company for years to step in as president.
Steve Bird is a man in constant motion.
What do I have after that?
The CEO of Safeway would rather do his job on his feet than from his office chair.
Bird wasn't about flashy gimmicks. He focused on tightening up operations, improving supply chains, and listening closely to what shoppers wanted. Under his steady hand, Safeway began to feel like an old friend rediscovering its stride. 5 years later, in 1997, Safeway made a big splash by buying Vons, its old partner-turned-rival in Southern California. That deal brought Safeway stores back into the Los Angeles and San Diego markets with a renewed sense of purpose. Instead of two companies racing side by side, there was now one stronger chain, sharing ideas on how to stock shelves faster, cut costs, and serve customers better.
Add that to thousands of Super Savers, our own money-saving brands, and double coupons, and you'll always get the very best savings at Safeway, no matter what their specials are.
The very next year, in 1998, Safeway turned its eyes to the Midwest and snapped up Dominick's supermarkets in Chicago. Dominick's had a loyal following. Shoppers loved its in-store delis, fresh bakeries, and local feel. Safeway kept many of those touches while rolling out its value price programs. It was like blending two neighborhood favorites into a bigger block party. Everyone enjoyed both familiar flavors and new savings. 1999 marked another year of growth. Safeway added Randall's Food Markets in Houston and Kargotstein Foods in Anchorage to its family. Two very different places, but with tight-knit communities and shoppers who cared about quality and price. By joining forces, Safeway could tap new supply routes and bring in better deals on fresh produce, dairy, and meat, helping keep those aisles full and prices low. In 2001, Safeway didn't slow down. It picked up Genwardi's Family Markets in Norristown, Pennsylvania, a chain beloved for its friendly staff and home-style bakery, and acquired 11 Abco stores in Arizona and quickly folded them into its expanding Arizona network. Each new market meant new tastes to learn about. East Coast shoppers who loved Philly cheesesteaks and hoagies, desert diners who counted on early morning eggs and fresh tortillas. Safeway's playbook was simple. Listen to local needs, share best practices nationwide, and keep prices fair.
Safeway shopping is quality at low prices on the kind of things you and I need every week.
Through all these moves, the key was balance. Safeway aimed to be big enough to negotiate lower prices from suppliers, yet personal enough to make shoppers feel they weren't just a number. Loyalty cards, weekly sales flyers, and well-trained store teams helped bridge the gap between big chain power and neighborly service. By the turn of the millennium, Safeway had stretched from coast to coast again, but this time with a clearer plan. Instead of chasing endless growth, the strategy was to pick partners wisely, learn local tastes, and strengthen each region step by step. That careful, grounded approach under Steve Bird's leadership set the stage for Safeway to thrive in the 21st century, ready to roll out new store designs, fresh food counters, and digital tools, all while keeping true to the bargain-hungry spirit born in 1915. But just as Safeway seemed to have found its stride, a series of bold moves signaled that another major shift was on the horizon. In 2013, Safeway took a big step north of the border. It agreed to sell all its Canadian stores to Sobeys for CAD $5.8 billion, pending approval from competition watchdogs.
Massive deal between two Canadian supermarket giants. Sobeys has bought more than 200 Canadian Safeway locations, including 75 here in BC.
Sobeys already had a solid foothold in eastern Canada, but this deal supercharged its presence in the West, where Safeway had been a familiar name for decades. The sale closed 5 months later, and while Sobeys quietly swapped in its house brands, It kept the Safeway signs hanging above those grocery doors. For customers, it was mostly business as usual. Same stores, same staff, same daily deals, just with a fresh wave of products on the shelves. In the U.S., 2013 was also the final curtain for Dominick's in Chicago. In October, Safeway announced it would close or sell all 72 Dominick's stores by early 2014.
Dominick's will be closing its 72 locations throughout the Chicagoland area, including 3 here in Naperville, has loyal shoppers frustrated.
Neighbors who'd shopped at Dominick's for years suddenly had to find new spots for their weekend bakery runs and deli sandwiches. Rival grocers smelled an opportunity. They raced to hire experienced Dominick's employees and bid on the nicest store locations. Only one Dominick's stayed open a bit longer, in Bannockburn, Illinois, finally closing its doors on January 25, 2014. A few weeks later, on February 19th, Safeway surprised Wall Street by admitting it was open to being bought. The grocery giant had grown through countless purchases and was now testing the waters. On March 6th, longtime rival Albertsons, backed by private equity firm Cerberus Capital Management, stepped in with a $9.4 billion offer.
Albertsons announced it will acquire all outstanding shares of Safeway, which is currently the second largest grocery chain in America.
The deal was slated to wrap up in the fourth quarter of 2014. Under the Albertsons umbrella, Safeway's stores got a refresh in more ways than one. Private label brands customers knew and loved were realigned to match Albertsons' lineup. Behind the scenes, old cash registers and inventory systems were swapped out for Albertsons tech to make life easier for store teams and customers. One interesting side plot. Blackhawk Network.
My name is Ernesto Cazares, and I'm the staffing manager at Blackhawk Network. Initially, what attracted me to Blackhawk was the opportunities for growth, the stability of the company, and the universal appeal of its product.
The gift card provider that had long handled Safeway's plastic gift cards was spun off into its own company as part of the merger. Even after the sale, Blackhawk kept rolling out Safeway gift cards until January 5, 2023. Then, without much fanfare, its remaining cards were deactivated.
Tonight, we're responding to a Walnut Creek woman's case. She lost a small amount on a gift card, but thieves are stealing big money, perhaps tens of millions of dollars every month.
But if you'd bought a gift card before that cutoff, don't worry. It's still good through 2037. Meanwhile, in 2021, Albertsons switched its branded gift card activation service to another company, Incom, for a fresh look and new tech features. These moves, selling Canada, closing Dominick's, and merging with Albertsons, marked Safeway's turning point. It started as a single low-price grocery store in Idaho in 1915.
My daughter brought home so many groceries for $72, neither one of us could believe it. And so we've been coming here since then.
Over a century later, it had been part of countless mergers, buyouts, and spin-offs, touching nearly every corner of North America. Through every sale and shakeup, the one constant was Safeway's simple promise: fair prices on good food and a friendly place to shop. Today, under new leadership and a new banner, that promise still holds strong, even if the company's chapters have looked very different. On January 30th, 2015, Safeway and Albertsons officially tied the knot. Almost immediately, antitrust rules kicked in. Hagen, a Bellingham, Washington chain, agreed to buy 146 Vons, Albertsons, and Pavilion stores across 8 western states. Big cities like Los Angeles, Portland, Phoenix, San Diego, Seattle, and Las Vegas saw Hagen signs pop up where Safeway once stood.
Good evening, Jeff. We're at the store at Southwest Hall in Beaverton, and it's one of the stores listed in these court documents that Hagen is targeting to close in the next few weeks or months.
All to keep competition fair. With those divestments done,
Safeway has agreed to be acquired by an investment group led by Cerberus Capital Management. The $7.6 billion merger is the latest in the supermarket industry.
Safeway's remaining banners, Randall's, Tom Thumb, Vons, Pavilions, and Safeway itself, melted into Albertsons operations. Behind the scenes, Safeway's private label staples took over Albertsons' old super value products. Even the tech got swapped. Albertsons stores ditched their NCR registers in favor of Safeway's Toshiba/IBM point-of-sale systems. Meanwhile, in Northern California, a familiar name made a quiet comeback. Andronico's, once a beloved Bay Area chain, returned in 2019 with a new store in Monterey. A year later, 4 former Safeway community markets in Berkeley, Los Altos, and San Anselmo reclaimed the Andronico's name. Today, these locations form a special district within Albertsons, running a bit more like Andronico's did back in the day. Starting in 2018, customers noticed a fresher look when they walked into a Safeway or Albertsons store. The old lifestyle decor got replaced with brighter paint, shiny tiled backsplashes, and cleaner department signs. Fluorescent tubes and halogen spotlights gave way to energy-saving LEDs in the aisles and behind the scenes in offices and break rooms. A switch wrapped up around 2021. Not every change was about tech or paint. In 2019, a Santa Clara County, California judge fined Safeway $12 million after ruling that a cashier had been wrongly denied the right to sit down.
Since 2011, but as a result of the judge's ruling, Safeway will have to pay $12 million and provide seating for as many as 30,000 check stand employees.
Under state law, workers are entitled to suitable seats. This case clearly showed that even big grocery chains must stick to the rules. In August 2021, Safeway rolled out Fresh Pass, a paid subscription that unlocks unlimited free delivery or curbside pickup and special member-only discounts. The launch included a revamped mobile app featuring scan and pay checkout, digital receipts, and QR payments in select markets. To keep things simple, the long-running Just For You loyalty program was streamlined to a friendlier For You.
Just For You is linked up to your club card, and once you register, the program tailors special offers to you based on what you've bought in the past. It also sends manufacturers' coupons directly to you as well.
Beyond its banners, Albertsons rebranded some of its other stores as Safeway. Places like Denver and Seattle, where the Safeway name still carried weight with local shoppers. It underscored one thing: even under a big corporate roof, brands that customers love can stay alive. Then, in October 2022, the grocery world buzzed again. Albertsons and Kroger announced plans to merge, promising cost savings and wider reach. They said they'd sell over 400 stores to C&S wholesale grocers to ease antitrust worries. But by February 2024, Colorado's Attorney General Phil Weiser sued to block the merger, warning it could mean higher prices, fewer jobs, and poorer service for shoppers. Safeway's story has always been one of change. Friendly stores weathering buyouts, spin-offs, and fresh rebrands. From that dusty Idaho start in 1915 to merging with Albertsons and possibly joining forces with Kroger, the chain keeps reinventing itself. But through every twist and turn, your local Safeway remains the same on the inside. A place to pick up good food, fair prices, and friendly service.